Okay, I think we're good to kick off, Derek.
Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Derek Gunderson, and just on behalf of the Northwestern Center on Law, Business, and Economics, I want to welcome everyone to our November People Analytics Virtual Career Meetup. Delighted to see everyone and really excited about today's discussion. And now I'd like to turn things over to Deborah Weiss, Director of our Workforce Science Project. Deborah?
Thanks, Derek. And I'd like to welcome our moderator, Richard Rosnow, the VP of People Analytics Strategy at One Model. He has been providing a tremendous service to the people analytics community with his various mechanisms for providing information about the people analytics job career paths. And one of them is a website that I put in the chat. At One Model, he's got a list of open roles in people analytics and HR technology. And I encourage anyone looking for or considering what their path looks like to take a look at that. So the
Thank you for the shout out there.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great, unbelievable resource. So the webinars are an opportunity for a deeper dive into how organizations shape the roles and responsibilities of these jobs. And we have a fabulous panelist to discuss this, and I'll turn it over to Richard and let him introduce her.
Wonderful. Thrilled to be here today and thrilled to be here with Elizabeth Bailey. Liz Bailey, thanks for joining us. Liz is the Senior Manager of People Analytics and Insights over at Ulta Beauty. She's had a phenomenal career in people analytics, and we are super excited to talk to you today. So Liz, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. And I just have to give a shout out to the three of you. You guys have been such a support to my learning and to building out my community. So it's always a joy to attend these on either end of it. But I'm excited to be able to share opportunities at Ulta today.
That's awesome. Mutual Admiration Society. Absolutely. And that's definitely been the fun thing about these is it's not just for people that are looking for careers, but just the level of insight we can get with the people that come on, the openness of the community, the people that are willing to share and just get to talk a little bit about their journey and highlight their journey. So Liz, really excited to kind of dig into it a little bit here. Could you tell us a little about your people analytics journey? How did you find people analytics?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say never close a door because you just don't know where your journey is going to take you. And having joined these, on a monthly basis, I feel like you kind of hear those type of paths where it's like, how did someone end up here? And mine's somewhat similar. So I studied marketing and international business and went into a sales role straight out of school, kind of your entry-level sales, and found my way into recruiting. And so from a recruiting position, then you start to get the chance to start playing around with data, right? So you've got the ATS data, and I've always had a very curious mind. I like to connect the dots, solve the puzzles, be that data nerd, where I think everyone who is in our space kind of has that mindset. And so I started being able to use it in a function that wasn't a formal people analytics role, but started to be able to get that exposure and start to build that brand for myself. And so I did move into management roles within talent acquisition. And then when I came over to Ulta, it was an opportunity to grow our people analytics specific to talent acquisition. We had just implemented a new ATS. We needed someone on the team who was willing to take on the report build and the dashboards and start to dive into the metrics. And, I raised my hand. So it wasn't a formal position for probably the first 6 months, but I enjoyed it. Loved it. And so I was able to build somewhat of a business case to create that position, that there was a need, that there was enough data, there was enough insights that we could be providing, enough data elements within that system for sure. And then from there was able to show the value that analytics can bring to the TA space and were able to move over to the more generalized people analytics space. So just kept doing what I enjoyed doing and the rest kind of falls into place.
Liz, I love that path, and it raised a couple other questions for me, if you don't mind. I'm excited with the sales background. Have you found that that's a foundation you've been able to take with you, and how does that apply kind of on the people analytics side too?
Yeah, so I was a freight broker, so it's not completely transferable. It was a very
Sure.
job. But what I think is transferable is the ability to tailor your message to your audience, to be able to speak to all different types of people at different levels, and communicate that message out. So I think in people analytics, you've got to use both sides of your brain. And so I think that naturally, my brain worked in the kind of the complex logic of analyzing this data, but the sales side helped me have the confidence to, be able to speak directly to anyone about, the message I'm trying to share.
That's awesome. It's one of the things I love about people analytics is it's such a diverse space with people coming in from so many different places. And then we get to work with people that have varied backgrounds and different backgrounds. And I hope that continues throughout kind of our careers within the people analytics space. Maybe one more question too on that first one. You said you raised your hand to build the position. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I'm sure there's people listening that are maybe in a similar position where they're data minded and they're data interested and they think they might have to leave their company, but like that idea of like, how do you go about raising your hand, or just could you talk us a little about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that I am lucky to be at a company like Ulta that offers those sort of opportunities. We have been around since 1990. We're a very financially stable company with a very sound leadership and a strong business model, but we can still operate with that entrepreneurial spirit. So, it's definitely, I think about starting to plant the seed and putting in the extra work without expecting anything in return. And it's starting to show the value that you can bring. And at a certain point, once you've shown the value, so for example, within our applicant tracking system, to visually show that implementing a new process is going to decrease our time to fill from 65 days down to 50 days, the cost savings back to the business, the productivity increase. I mean, you can't look past the numbers. That's why I like being in this role. The numbers don't lie. There's no emotions tied to it. This is what it is. And so there were so many facets of the ATS that we, doing this on the side, there wasn't the ability to dig in. There was the career site analytics. There was our recruiter flow and funnel analytics. There was just so many pieces of it. And we had and still do, but at the time had really started on this DEI journey. And so how can we lean into that? And so there were so many opportunities that we wanted to take, that it was, natural to allow that position to grow. And so, of course, working with your manager, letting them know of the interest that you have, what you can bring to the table. My leader now always says strategy before structure. So I would go and say, oh, this is the role that I want to do. Well, what's the strategy behind it? What are you going to bring to the table? How is it tied to the enterprise goals? And then you can work through, what that ideal structure does look like.
That's fantastic advice. And I love that phrase, strategy before structure too. That's a good one to take away.
Yeah, it's engraved in my head. She's told me so many times.
Oh, it's one to write down. So you talked about Ulta a little bit, but could you tell us a little bit more about like Ulta as a business, and then a little bit of like what makes it unique, or like what stands out to you having been there for a little while that you'd want to share with folk?
Yeah. So Ulta is a wonderful company to work for. So I've been here about 4.5 years, and feel very lucky to work for Ulta. So what makes Ulta so unique to me? So, and just in case anyone isn't familiar with what Ulta does, we are the nation's largest beauty retailer. So we do have brick and mortar stores. We also have an online presence. So about 1,400 stores, a little over 50,000 employees. Being retail, it spikes more heavily right around this time. So go shopping for Black Friday, because there's a lot of good deals going on. But what makes us so unique is that, and what I love so much about it is that it really is guest, which is our customers, we call them guests, and associate centric. We are focused on the guest experience, but also the associate engagement when you work here. So you really feel that from the leadership team. It's a fun place to work too. I mean, at the end of the day, we are selling makeup. So it's, it's lively, it's fun. People are engaged, but to the point I made, we have such a strong business model, and are so financially stable that we also are able to hire the best of the best. So you're in this fun environment working with extremely intelligent people. So you're able to learn and grow. I think that's just key. And then really, when you think about beauty, Ulta is on, and always has been, on a mission to ensure that beauty is thought about differently and it's inclusive to everyone. So whether you're a guest shopping at our store, are you having an inclusive shopping experience? Are you able to find, the whatever you may be looking for? But as an associate, are you able to bring your full self to work? Are you able to be your full authentic self when you come? And there's such a focus on that and such a level of respect when you go to work. So it's nice to work in that sort of environment too.
I love hearing that, and I love hearing you talk about it. Just it shines through how excited you are about the company and what they're up to.
Yeah.
And that's the dream for a lot of people out there. So I'm excited you've got these roles posted.
Yeah.
But before we get into kind of the open roles, I would love to hear just a little bit about retail people analytiks, because I think retail is such a.
I'm sorry, I just saw someone in the chat say selling us hard on Ulta, and it's funny because you would know if I wasn't telling the truth, and I truly mean it. But I hear you. I know what you can't get the recruiter out of me.
That's good though. That's good. You want to be somewhere where you can be excited about that and passionate about it, and that's
Right.
I wish that on everybody.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
But no, it's all good. It's all good. I would love to hear a little bit more about retail people analytics, because I think that's an area where we've had a lot of people on that do a lot of like corporate or back office or white collar, and I think retail is such a fascinating area because you do get higher volumes of data, you get faster data, you get different data. Would love to hear your just take on that, having been in the space for a little while.
Yeah.
What are some exciting things that you get to work on as a people analytics team?
Yeah. So what's really neat about Ulta specifically in the retail space is that we have our retail stores, but within those stores, if you've ever been in an Ulta, there's also salons that you can go to. So we also have a service component. So you can go in from our retail side, or we have data also on what we call our services or our salon side. And so that's very unique to us because we don't, in analyzing the data, we do look at them differently. So within one brick and mortar, we're almost kind of looking at two separate companies or sets of data. To your point of retail, we're actually in holiday right now. So our holiday hiring, we actually start our project planning in July, 4 roles to open in September, for them to be fully filled right about now. So it's really exciting and fun. Our holiday is where we get a large portion of our sales, and so it's very important to our business, and that's something that we analyze very heavily, actually on a weekly basis, providing out metrics. And so with that, we call it peak hiring, and so we're on a weekly basis looking at how is the hires coming in, how are they correlating to what finance had budgeted, to what workforce management had estimated. How does all of the work for our employee brands, such as we have a seasonal site on our career site, all of the campaigns that are being sent out through social media, how are those all playing together so that we can get ahead of hiring and make sure that we're fully staffed before Black Friday hits. So it's both in the store and our DCs, because you think about, you're in the store and you're shopping, but we've got a very large e-commerce presence too. So our DCs during holiday are slammed. So they've got a focus on their peak hiring too. So yeah, pretty much from October until the end of December, you're not going to make a change in a system. You're just going to heads down. We're executing the plan that we've created.
That's super helpful. And it's helpful too, because I think there's some people in analytics teams that have to go find work. It doesn't sound like you have to go find work. It sounds like you're woven in there in such a nice way. And to have that sort of demand and the excitement and being part of that team, that's exciting to hear.
Yeah. Well, and I will share too that we're definitely not looking for work, but we are being strategic in how we prioritize our work. And so about a year ago, how this company came, or how this department came to be, is years before our new leader started a year ago, we separated our analytics into what we called pre-hire, which I was leading, the TA side of things, talent acquisition, and then post-hire. So once you're an employee, and we were siloed, we weren't connecting the story. when our new leader came on, our team now rolls up into a strategy and innovation team. And so one of the first initiatives were to get all of the leaders in people success, we call it people success, but it's our HR department, aligned on what are we all working on, and are they interconnected, and are they tied to the enterprise goals, and ensuring that we weren't working in silos, which maybe historically we had been. And so from that work, we were able to cascade, okay, we know where we're aligned at a leadership level. It's connected to the enterprise. We have 5 strategic imperatives. Now we can connect our work back to that and make sure that it's adding value. And so I think that's so important, because it's easy in people analytics to get sucked into the day-to-day. Someone has a request, you go down a rabbit hole, and you've wasted your whole day doing a report that you're not quite sure it's tied back to an imperative. So yeah, our work now is aligned, and we've got a great leader who helps guide me, on how to create those roadmaps and ensure that we're doing the right work.
That is awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And so you've got 2 open roles right now, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more about the investment. And like, how did you make the pitch for the investment, and like, what's a little bit driving behind that?
Yeah.
And then I'm truly excited for the governance. Just the fact that governance is used in the title, that's a rare thing to find. And so we'd love to hear a little bit more about that too as we talk about the roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, this team merged about 1 year ago, October 24th, because we just celebrated our leaders' first year anniversary, which was exciting. And once we were able to get a plan together at the leadership level, it was clear. So there was already this investment of people analytics. We were tied to this new group strategy and innovation. And so there was already buy-in from the transformation office, from all of the chiefs. So we knew we were headed in this direction, but we didn't know quite yet what we needed to hire for, because again, strategy before structure. So first figure out, what we want to be doing and what we want to achieve and be known for. And so once we were able to set the strategic imperatives, we were able to say, okay, we know that holding focus groups and conversations with our stakeholders, what does everyone need and want? And then we went through an exercise of prioritization and putting on the roadmap. And from there, we were able to easily display, okay, this is the work that we're going to be doing. What now is the structure that we have? Do we have the right skill set and people in place to be able to do that? And so that was one driver. Another driver is that our people success data is not currently on a data warehouse, which is a challenge for us. All of the rest of our data it's a large project that they're working on with IT and outside consultants. But we, have intentionally slowed people success being on the radar as we're first putting on customer and sales data and things that come first. And so we do know that we're headed in that direction to migrate our data. And we have in people success, over 10 systems, 2 of which we're fully integrated with. But there's a big opportunity here. So with that, to your point of the data governance, comes the need to say, okay, we're actually going to migrate this data to the cloud that's going to be used by many more functions than us, in some capacity, of course, because of the sensitivity. But is our data clean? Is there data quality? What does the process look like for input so that we can ensure that moving forward, the data that is going into this data warehouse is accurate? So we have an enterprise data governance team that was established. We've always had data governance within Ulta, but it has had more of a focus in the last few years. And so it's led by James Newland. He's an amazing person to connect with. He's not specific to HR, but he's a wonderful resource for us. It's specific to data governance. And so we've been partnering with him, and they set, kind of the foundational policies that then individually in the departments we execute out on. And so we need someone to be able to lead that for our team to make sure we are ready when it's time. We're ready to migrate our data to the data warehouse, and it'll be as seamless as possible. So that is why that role has existed.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, why it has come to be. And then I also have a senior analyst open, and now knowing where we want to move to, we had one dashboard, two dashboards, one for the majority of use, workforce insights dashboard. We do use Tableau right now, and a DEI dashboard. And there's so much opportunity. We're getting more access to our data. We're able to start connecting those data points, and we need to understand what lives in our systems and what story do we want to tell, and how do we tell this visually in, a BI tool. So I'm excited to be able to hire someone on my team. We have a senior analyst now. Her name's Dina. She's absolutely wonderful, and just looking to continue to grow that team.
That's awesome. Shout out, Dina.
Yeah, Dina. She rocks. Don't steal her, though.
Dina, last name unknown.
Yeah.
Will not be mentioned. No, but really, Liz, what I'm hearing is you have a stable team. You have leaders with tenure. You have a financially sound company with a workforce strategy and an aligned HR team that's thinking about data quality. Like, what a rare, perfect storm. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the roles you're hiring. And just, I'm also just cautious in just the amount of work it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And so as you're thinking about that, like any challenges along the way you could kind of share, and maybe some bumps in the road to get there, because you're in sort of the promised land here, it sounds like, to kind of go to this next stage.
We are, and we put in the work to get there. So this has been a year-long process of figuring out what roles we truly need. And so absolutely, you're hearing the end result of a lot of hard work and conversations and, brainstorming and healthy debates. So, I think that for us, one of the biggest challenges is not having our data in a data warehouse, because it does require a unique set of skills where we know we're moving towards that, but there is still a manual piece and component of it now. So how do we think through the strategy, knowing that we are on this journey, and we don't want to build product and then have to, redo it, but also we have to serve our stakeholders in the meantime while we're waiting for, this journey to happen. So that was definitely a big obstacle. And I think that with data governance comes a high level of learning how to influence without authority. It's kind of this new space for a lot of people. And when you go to someone who's a system owner and you're like, knock, knock, you're not doing something right, let's set a new process, they're not always super excited about that because they feel like they're the owner of the system. And so it's really, the last year is also bringing people along on this journey of what we want to do, so that by the time we get to this point where we're ready to hire and start executing, they have the buy-in. So that was a lot of the time as well. And lastly, I'll just say, building the data literacy on our team. It's people analytics is somewhat new to the majority of companies. And so how we share that with our leaders, how we train people out on what we're trying to do, we had to build that brand for our team too first.
That's super helpful. And just shout out to people in the chat that are kind of here along the way. Please put some questions in the chat, put them in Q&A. I'll make sure we wrap up kind of the main questions by like the 45, and then we'll ask kind of Q&A in those final 15. So throw them in there. I'll start collecting them, and start thinking of questions now too, because we're going through kind of the overall scope of the interview here. But Liz, you mentioned the team. I would love to hear how's your team set up kind of across. Do you have peers within the group? Are there other teams that are part of this kind of strategy unit? It's an interesting setup. It'd be great to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, so we roll up into the larger umbrella of our strategy and innovation team. So we have a leader of our strategy and innovation team. She's a senior director, Rachel Williamson. She's also amazing. And she came from Amazon. So she was able to also teach us a lot that, she brought a different perspective. Under her team, we are separated into two different functions right now. So she's got a project management team, which is a central PMO to support these large projects that have come from the strategic imperatives. There are two of them. So right now they're mostly focused on the top-down initiatives because they're a smaller team. There will probably be opportunity for them to grow their team as well. And then we have the people analytics side. And so, of course, I'm on that side, and that team is split up into two pillars. So I lead our analytics and insights team. And then my peer, Amy Dressel, she's a senior manager as well. She leads our data management side. And the main difference there is our team is more front facing with the client. So we support the entire enterprise, with people success being, of course, one of our main stakeholders, specifically our HR business partners, our COEs, and then our executive team. But we do support, finance, legal, store apps, as well as other groups. So what our team does is we really focus on automation. So how can we make this quicker and faster for you, something that you're already doing? Potentially, kind of understanding the larger strategy of the team. Can we build out a dashboard or some sort of direct access tool so that you're able to drive those without needing to engage with our team? We support all of the executive requests and needs that come through from a people data perspective. We support any ad hoc reporting that's coming through from the business. And then, of course, we partner heavily with Amy's team on any projects that need to be done as well. And then Amy's side is on the data management side is focused more on the accessibility, the integration, and the quality of the data. So the data governance role is under her team. And they essentially are amazing business partners and support to us to make sure that the data is clean, we can get to it, and it's ready to use when when we're supporting our stakeholders.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great organization to have that all in kind of one spot. And to be able to work across those strategic imperatives and making sure you're tightly aligned. Because we hear time and again, like people analytics teams, like the number one goal is like get tightly aligned to whatever the strategy is for your business. Yeah. And it sounds like you couldn't be closer to that.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. It's and like I said, it's been a journey, and it's learning. You have to follow the process as it should be, and if you slow down, it will be fruitful in the end. That's what we've seen.
That's good advice. So if you're thinking about for these two roles, what really stands out that would help them be successful in their like first 90 days or first year? And it's okay to kind of take them separately too, as you're kind of thinking, because they're a bit of a very different kind of perspectives there.
Yeah. So what's going to be important in this role, and I think in any people analytics role, is that general curiosity. So we are a newer team, right? We've been around a year. We have the opportunity to build this framework how we see best fit. And so someone who's going to be successful is someone who's excited about that and is like, okay, I've got this great company, and now I'm able to grow a people analytics team, and start to evolve this. And so we need someone who is a self-starter, who is passionate about this space, who is collaborative amongst our team. We're a relatively lean team, but we support a lot of stakeholders and we have a lot of fun, and we do, challenge each other and think through, okay, what should this really look like? Because we want to get it right, because we have the opportunity to get it right. So I think that is what's going to prove, full success. I think within retail, if you're not coming from the retail space, and I had to learn this myself, is fully diving into what does that look like? It's not just a store. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, from the distribution center to get it to the customer, to get it to the store. How does corporate interact with that? Corporate's the smallest piece of the pie within our company. And so we have to humble ourselves and recognize that, if you don't have a store background, you got to learn it, and you need to understand what's going on in the field. And so that will be imperative to someone who doesn't have that background. And we have the resources and training set up to do so. But you got to be hungry to learn.
Does that mean like kind of in the store? Do you get to be in there? Do you get to kind of like spend a day shadowing? I'd just love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of opportunities. So you can go on a DC tour, which is super neat. You wouldn't believe how big these places are, and the pickers of the product. And myself being a beauty enthusiast, you just see shelves of product and you're like, this is heaven. There's opportunities to go and shadow within the store, so you can see behind the scenes in the back room. There's opportunity. We actually have a mock store that you can also be part of a tour with, so you're not actually interrupting any guest experiences as well. And overall, Ulta is a place where there's a lot of tenure there, and a lot of people from corporate actually come from the field. So there's a lot of opportunity to learn from your peers as well, and they're open to sharing and training that. And so to have the courage to kind of reach out and say, hey, this isn't quite making sense, or I'd like to learn more about this. How does it really work? There's a lot of resources available to you. Even today, when we were going through holiday, I'm like, okay, guys, remind me, looking at last year, it looks like we're right at our peak, but do we have another hiring push before December? Like I see sometimes we do, and they go through like what really happens in the store. How do they use their payroll hours? How do they manage their stores with all of these different positions that they have, and interweave seasonal into it? So there's definitely a lot of opportunities to learn.
That's fantastic. And people analytics can sometimes be like a back office that supports a back office that supports people who do the job. And so those opportunities to actually spend time in the field, to get to know people, to get to know kind of what's going on within the business itself, that's a tremendous asset to any team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you're thinking about Ulta Beauty over the next year, like from a people analytics perspective, like what's getting you excited or energized, or whether that's projects or initiatives or just team scope, what you can get up to in the next year?
Yeah, so what's getting us very excited is, to your point, we've landed at this spot where we're like, all right, we are ready. We know what we want to hire for. We know what we're working on next year. We have brought everyone along. Everyone's ready. And so now we get to do the fun part. We get to execute out on it, right? We get to build these dashboards. We get to show the value that our team can bring. And we've been doing that over the course of the year in small pockets, and being able to show, the organization as a whole, and specifically people success, that this team is here to support in so many ways that they hadn't even thought about, and start building their data literacy. So it's been fun to be able to learn together. It's been fun to be able to share what we know out with the business partners and see it come to fruition and circle back around, through a chief. And you're like, you got, like, we did it. We shared, what turnover versus retention means. And it's cool to see that. So we are absolutely excited about being able to get our team set and start kind of seeing some of these projects come to fruition.
That's awesome to hear. And for those folks who are maybe coming into people analytics space, or for folk that want to kind of advance their careers in people analytics, what's a piece of advice you'd offer to them, and thinking about whether they should stand out, or how to stand out, or how to make themselves known within the space?
Yeah. So the advice that I like to give, and this could be relevant to people analytics or to anyone in any space, is take a second to reflect on what brings you joy and what makes you feel satisfied and engaged. So there are some days where you may be doing something and it drains you. And then there's some days where you leave and you're like, that was the best day ever. And I have no idea why I have so much energy and I'm so excited. And so it's worthwhile to reflect back and think, what was it specifically that, brought me so much satisfaction, and to lean into that. Because in people analytics, there's so many different pieces of it that I've learned that myself. And you can be forward facing, you can be behind the office, you can be strictly, doing the technical side. You could almost be nearly an IT person. You could be a consultant essentially. And so it's not a one size fits all. And so I think that when you think through people analytics, there's opportunity for any type of person who has any type of personality, skill set, strengths. And you need to do the due diligence to figure out, yourself and what you enjoy and what your strengths are, so that you can, find that right fit for you. Because I truly think that once you find that right fit and you're naturally leaning on your strengths, your passion will come through. You'll do well because it's kind of naturally falling into place, and you'll be able to bring the most value to your company.
That's great advice, and that really resonates with me in my own career. Just kind of there's an opportunity that I joined for people analytics alone, and when that started to change, I realized I wasn't aligned with the company.
Mm-hmm.
And that fit across kind of company, team, work, role, finding that fit and thinking about that ahead of time requires you to think about it and reflect on it. And
Right.
sometimes in that job search, it can just be so frenetic or tough, because it's a tough thing to be out there looking for a role. But that reflection really goes a long way to kind of find that next role and that fit.
Yeah,
So that's great advice to pass on.
Yeah, good.
based on your experiences at Ulta, what wisdom would you pass on to other people in analytics teams? Like, what's been working that, like, did you find a secret sauce somewhere, or there's a tip you keep coming back to? It'd be great to like just take a minute to pass things on to other people analytics leaders that might be on the call or people that might be listening to learn about what's going on within a people analytics function.
Yeah, absolutely. We've learned a lot along the way. That's why I kind of chuckle. Like we've got a lot to share. And I have to be honest, this network has been so wonderful. We've done so much learning from within benchmarking with other groups. So just a big shout out to this community that you all have supported us in our learning. And hopefully, we're able to share that back in pieces. But a lot of what we learned came from this group. So I think it's really, again, not to repeat myself on the strategic imperatives, but it's been so important to first lay that groundwork, because you do get excited when you first come on board and you're like, okay, people want this. I'm going to go run and in a million directions and start producing these things. But why are we doing it? What is the mission and goal for our team? What do we want to achieve? And it's okay that we can't do everything right now. Certain requests or products have higher impact to the business and are tied and more aligned to the business imperatives. And while it may be very important and top priority for the person requesting it, there is an opportunity to prioritize and have those tough conversations. So that is definitely what, we started with, because when we came on as a team, people were excited, which was awesome, but it was also overwhelming because everyone wanted what they'd been keeping in their heads for the last few years. And then, they just kind of barf it out to us and expect it to be done the next day. And so it was definitely, making sure that we were taking a step back and doing the right things, and then communicating openly our plan so that no one felt like they were left out. No one felt like their work didn't have value or wasn't important to us, but that they understood the journey that we were going on.
Yeah, that's helpful, and it can be hard conversations. Any advice for those hard conversations on prioritization? Like, how do you let somebody down when they have a great project, a great idea, and it's just not a priority?
Right, I know. So it definitely takes practice. No one's perfect at it in the beginning, and it's uncomfortable in the beginning. Sales probably helped me with that. Now that you, so maybe
a lot of rejection.
Yeah. Yeah, myself, I got a lot of rejection, that's for sure. So, for me, it is about showing them the bigger picture, because I think when you are only talking about their one request, they're not understanding, well, we're only talking about one thing. How could it not be number one? It's only one thing. But when you show them, this is all the work, and I'm sorry for the sun coming in. This is all the work that, is going on at the enterprise level. I think it helps them understand that their work is valued, but helps them connect the dots and understand, okay, maybe I can understand that there are projects that are more connected to what's going on with the business. And I can see that now visually. I mean, we actually, we were kind of individually going to our directors and saying, no, putting out all these fires. And we realized, okay, we need to get in a room with all of them and put together an actual roadmap of, these are all the requests that come in. We have heard you all. We have thought through this completely. We have tied it to imperatives. We have put a lot of thought into this, and you're all in the room. So we're going to gain alignment together. So that's what we did, and it worked well. We went to a leadership meeting. We're like, okay, everybody, like, we're going to shoot you down all at once, and we're going to tell you why, and we're all going to talk about the why, and it's going to make sense. And the work that we're going to do is going to have the highest impact. And everyone was super, they understood. And I think when you go in, we do use radical candor here at Ulta. And I think when someone knows that you care, but you're providing honest feedback, it goes well once you build that rapport and they understand the why, and that you truly, you want to help them. It's just not a right now.
That's helpful. That social alignment versus one-on-ones goes a really long way too, to have when you have the TA leader and the L&D leader in the room and you stack rank their projects, they don't just say no to you, they have to talk to each other. They have to figure that out together.
Right, exactly true.
Yeah, that's a great way to bring the group together. So for those of you with questions, start throwing the questions in the chat or the Q&A. We've got a couple in the Q&A too. I've got one more question for you, Liz, and then we'll kind of close out this formal side and we'll move over to that kind of open Q&A side.
Yeah.
What's ahead for the field? What's coming for people analytics? What do you see happening in the space, and just looking into the crystal ball for the next year, maybe not too far out because things are changing pretty rapidly, but what do you see that's ahead for the field?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because I do think that buzzword is the, generative AI, and we are dipping our toe in that at Ulta. We actually have a monthly working session with our data governance team where they're starting to educate us on that. But what I'm most excited about right now for our journey here at Ulta and the industry as a whole is I'll give a plug to the amazing group that Deborah and Derek are working on, is the MEQ group. And so to gain consistency across the entire industry of what these metrics mean and how do we use them and what does good and great look like when being able to gather this data, I'm excited about that because we've found through our conversations that naturally people are calculating things slightly differently, right? And it's not just for internal use. We're presenting these metrics externally to ESG reports or other sort of surveys. And if we're not all doing it same in the industry, we can't then use any of our data to benchmark against one another. So being able as us as a community to get on the same page has been really fun. And I got to give Deborah the credit here. It's just been really a wonderful opportunity that I'm happy to be a part of. So
that's an awesome note to end this formal side on, and I'll give MEQ a shout out as well. Really tremendous work coming out of Northwestern on that. Mm-hmm. So, well, Liz, just first off, a huge thank you for coming on this first part. Yeah. And we're going to close out the kind of formal recording here. So just thank you. But before we close out the recording, where can people find you if they want to learn more about the roles?
Yep. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's under as Liz Bailey. You can shoot me a message. Or are we able to provide emails in this session?
Yeah.
Okay. You can email direct to, it's ebailey@ulta.com. I check that more often than my LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you, Liz. And thank you everybody for coming on for this formal session. We'll close out the recording here and we'll move into our Q&A.
Okay. Thanks, Richard.